If you say you haven't been jealous of someone, you're lying. That's it. What do you think of when you think of jealousy?
Well, I immediately think the green-eyed monster.
Well, I think jealousy has negative connotations.
It's okay to be jealous. It's natural.
I think we can all point to certain moments where we've looked at someone else and wanted what they had in a way.
Maybe common thing in what jealousy means to me is when you see somebody living a life or living in the way that one strives for.
Welcome to Jealous Podcast, presented by Bing Bang. You meet a lot of cool people on the internet. People are like, oh, the internet. That's the old people say that, but the internet's. Hey, man.
Can you
It's
imagine?
not that bad.
No.
Can you think about that though? Like
There are parts of the internet I don't want to go.
like our parents were the parents who told us like don't meet strangers on the internet, and now
I met my boyfriend on the internet.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
And I didn't tell them for our whole first year together.
Oh, you did?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. I know.
Wait, so what did your parents say after
I
you're like?
told them we met at a coffee shop, and then eventually we got caught lying because our stories changed. They were not collaborating.
What
My
kind of
mom was
coffee
like-
shop was this?
My mom was like, "Tell me about the first time you laid eyes on my daughter." And
in Hispanic mother fashion, like tell me this romantic story.
tell me this romantic story. And Paul was like, she was ordering coffee, and I said, "Hey," and yeah, we just kept it at that. So
Oh,
And
man.
that was-
eventually, I told them, "Yeah,
Oh, man.
What did your mom say? She was like, "You lied to me."
can't believe you lied to me, betrayal." It was so dramatic. But like I didn't want her to think, "Oh, I met some random man on the internet, and now we're dating, and he's gonna kill you or something
Right.
like that." So
Right.
yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's so funny. I can't count the amount of times my mom would come home and I'd be on the big Windows 98 or 95, whatever, and she'd be like, you spent all day with your friends. Now, you don't need to be talking to them all night, too. And I'm like, I'm talking to kids from other schools. What?
I'm popular.
Yeah,
Hello.
I've got it's called networking.
I was
I'm
on
MSN.
LinkedIn before it was cool.
Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, why don't we get started? Well, Melody, thank you for being here with us. Oh, my gosh. We're really excited. Thank you, Sam, for asking
Yeah.
Melody to be on.
Yeah, thank you.
I had to bring her in.
Of course. October is a busy month. There's all kinds of things going on. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is why we brought on Gila. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. It is also National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is why Sam asked you to be on, among other reasons. But we're doing, kind of just a different thing this month where we're kind of highlighting some of those special things. So, yeah, welcome. I can't wait to get the conversation started.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. For people who don't know, you kind of introduce yourself. What do you do? Who you are?
So, my name's Melody Mercado. I am from Rockford, Illinois. Came here to Des Moines after grad school to be a reporter. I started at Channel 13 with Sam, so that's how we know each other.
Nice.
And now I work at the Des Moines Register. I cover city government for Des Moines.
Awesome. That's a big job.
It is.
You're
I'm
busy.
tired.
Yeah.
You are.
tired.
There is never not enough coffee for you.
No,
Right?
there's not.
Or melatonin at night to sleep.
Yeah. Well, no. So Melly, I wanted to bring you in because it's September 15th to October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month. I think this will air after, but whatever. We're putting it out anyway because
Celebrate all year long.
yeah, exactly.
That's right.
It's something to celebrate at all times. But I wanted to bring you in because I think the work you're doing at the Register is very important. You've done a lot of like really important work the past couple years, like even before at 13 and now into your time at the Register. And I was like, I want to bring Melody in because you besides my wife, you're the only other person that I've had like very in-depth conversations about like Hispanic identity. And then I see some of that in your reporting as well. And I was like, I need to bring her in to talk about that.
Oh, well, thank you.
So for kind of my first question is like, why journalism? Why did you want to get into journalism, whether it was television or print?
So I knew I wanted to be a journalist my freshman year of high school. I took the intro to journalism class. We had a newspaper, and I got really involved with that and yearbook. And we had a broadcast class, so I was really privileged to have access to that in high school, and a lot of students don't. And at first, I thought maybe I wanted to be a writer, like a book author, and I didn't know that there were other career opportunities if you liked to write or just like to tell stories. And so that's how I decided I wanted to be in journalism. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I can help people get their story out there, and, you know, maybe expose them to things that they've never seen or been a part of before. And that's sort of why I decided to go into journalism, and sort of like how my passion got started. Started very young. So.
Yeah. Was there like a certain person or anchor or someone in journalism that you just kind of, they caught your attention, that you were like, I really like the way that they're doing it? Or
I just, watching local news when I was a kid, I always thought it was really interesting and exciting. I liked the idea of not being in an office every day, and every day is something new. And I saw that in the local news that I was watching on television. And not only that, I'm a very talkative and social person. And so I just thought it would also be a cool way to meet people.
yeah, awesome.
Oh, that's, and I like, was it everything as soon as you got into local news? Was it like everything you dreamed of and more, and you were just like, oh no, actually, like everybody's just as dysfunctional?
Well, obviously, no one ever sees the work that goes into getting the final product. But I was prepared in grad school coming into it, knowing it was going to be long work hours, knowing it was going to be a lot of work. I mean, the one thing that you don't see is reporters in, you know, full dress-up clothes, because we have to be on television, in makeup, in the summer, carrying all of your stuff, sweating, and then trying to look presentable then on television, and not mess up. So I think that I have more of an appreciation for what journalists do in general, knowing how much work it gets to either put a story on television, put a story in print, get something on the radio. It's a lot of work.
It's a ton of work. And even, you know, I didn't know much about it until I was introduced to Sam and Brandon too. And just even we'd be out at events, and I'd see the reporter there with the camera that they set up themselves. And I'm like, where's their camera guy? Like, where's the big van? Where, you know, everything that we see on TV when we're kids, and it's like glamorized, but it's like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. It looks like so much work. It is so much work.
And I think a great misconception is that we have our wardrobe paid for us. We have makeup people. We have people that do our hair. And I'm like, no. That's a lot of things that you'll see like in network news, or maybe higher stations, maybe in Chicago, New York, or LA. But no, we do it all ourselves. We do it all ourselves. So, you know, if I have a bad hair day, it's my own fault. So
And everybody can see, and then everybody tells you on your Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's one thing that we talked about the internet. We're like, it's not so bad. And then I'm sure you see a hefty dose of both sides when you are getting that direct feedback immediately. As soon as you sit down, your phone's blowing up because maybe you did have a hair out of place, or you said something that they didn't agree with. Not wrong, just that someone didn't agree with. So, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that job. I'm way too thin-skinned to receive direct feedback like that.
There's always comments about, the most comments that we'll ever receive, at least for my fellow female journalists and I, is always on our looks. It's always like, why'd you wear that dress? Why are your shoulders showing? I can see your collarbone. Your makeup didn't look that great. Why did you wear that color lipstick? It's sometimes a little bit ridiculous, because I would think that the content of the reporting that we're putting out there is more important than how I look. But for some people, it's really important. So I don't know.
I don't know either. And it's also surprising, I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of those comments come from other women, maybe?
Other women, a lot of men.
A lot more men.
I've had a lot of men message me on Instagram asking me why I was wearing tennis shoes with my dress. I'm like, sir, I am caring 40 pounds of equipment, so I'm not going to do that in 4-inch heels. Thank you.
Please do try that.
Well, and
tell me how
like
it
I
goes for
remember
you.
after I left 13 too, and like I knew all the gear you guys were carrying, and that's when like Black Lives Matter protests were going on downtown, and I saw you on television. I was like, oh, I know exactly everything she's carrying. And that sucks.
I was also really sweaty.
It was like the hottest days of the summer too.
Yeah, I wore workout clothes because I mean it was appropriate for television. But you know, if some of those days I walked 3 miles,
Right.
1 to 3 miles, and I wasn't going to do that in a dress.
Yeah, and you're reporting on very serious stuff. I mean, every day,
Exactly.
but especially during those protests. So I'm sorry, but what I'm wearing comes second.
It's not important
Right.
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
So what have been like the best or like the differences for you in terms of like transitioning from television, because you started at 13 to now you're doing all print at the Register?
So one of the reasons that I wanted to switch was because although my first job ended up being in television, I was applying to both print and television jobs. I adore long form reporting. I also really love to write, and sometimes you're not able to fit everything in that you want to in television. You know, you're only going to see a minute 30, 2 minutes if you're lucky and have a great producer who says yes. But I wanted to be able to do more investigative pieces, get more involved in the community, and I thought the best way that I can do that was by switching to print. And that was really the driving factor. You know, sometimes we do have like short deadlines, but a lot of the times I get to work on really great projects that I have maybe a week to do, and if it's something that's more evergreen, I can have even more time. And you know, that's really important to me because what I do is important to me, and I want the people that I'm reporting on to feel important as well, and to feel that I took the time, no matter what their story was, to get it right, and to you know, sit down with them multiple times if that's what it takes. And sometimes you don't have that opportunity in television.
Right. Yeah. What you've said is out there, and it's kind of like you can't really take that back. You don't have that time to sit with it. Yeah, I agree. Writing is such a, I mean, it's the oldest thing that there is, right? So there's passion that we can put it into it, and there's time that we can put into it that you're right, you just can't put into like that little spot on TV.
Well, and that was another reason why I was jealous of you too. I was like, oh man, she just like, you were able to cross over. Because I think when I got into journalism, I was like, all right, I'm a decent writer. Like, I'm an okay writer, but like, is this where I want to put my time into learning more about writing? Or do I want to learn the more technical side of how do I craft a story visually and camera gear and stuff like that? So I think that's where I got there. But I've always been like, well, what if I did work on my writing? Could I be like, would I have been better at that as well? Is kind of like my weird thing. So in your writing then, in doing some of those long form pieces, like what have been like some of your favorite pieces so far in your short time at the Register?
Oh gosh.
Though I know the one pinned on your Twitter.
Oh yes. So I did a story on the National African American Gun Association and how they have 2 chapters in Iowa. I think they're, you know, I was pursuing the story at a time when there was a lot of conversation surrounding gun legislation in Iowa, and a lot of the thought is that there's only the NRA or maybe your local gun club that you could go to, and I think that I wanted to show that there is diversity within gun ownership, and it exists nationwide, and it also exists in Iowa. And so when I was looking, I had noticed that this national organization existed, and they had chapters, and they had 2 brand new chapters in Iowa. And so I reached out to them, and they were just in the beginning stages, and they invited me down to one of their meetings and to see how they work, and just to showcase how they think about gun ownership differently and how it's a more inclusive environment. Anyone can join, but you know, they really, what's interesting is that their membership is over 50% women, and a lot of that is Black women. And how they teach a lot of people own guns who've never shot a gun before. And so they teach people how you need to practice. You need to make sure you clean and take care of your firearm. You also need to learn the laws in your state, like stand your ground laws and things like that. And, you know, the most important thing is safety, safety, safety. And so that was a really cool experience that I was really glad to be able to highlight them and show that, you know, diversity within gun ownership and the Second Amendment does exist, and it exists here in Des Moines. So it was pretty cool to do that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I remember I saw that and I was like, man, Melody's really doing like, you're doing very different stuff than you were doing. Because I feel like at 13, sometimes it was very like, just feed the beast of the daily news cycle. Like you're just trying to survive till 10 o'clock till your story airs and you're like, all right, we're going to do this again. And so to be able to do like some of those more in-depth pieces for you, how has that made you feel? Like, I'm guessing you're feeling more fulfilled now.
I do. And it's hard because television is so different in the points of you get the basics across so that people can understand. And there is the ability within certain positions to do more in-depth things. But within my position, I was more of a general assignment reporter. So it's very much do the things of the day. And if you if you do have time to work on larger projects, great, but it's not something that's always guaranteed. Where now, I mean, I'm still really busy and I do a lot of news of the day things still, but I'm always consistently working on one or two other side projects that are more like in-depth or long form or like feature-like. And so I feel like much better about my work because I am able to sort of do those stories that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was saying, man, I wish I could do that, but I don't have the time.
Are you given like guidelines, like go find something that'll fit, you know, between these guardrails, or are you going and finding things that are just purely what you want to do? Is that or is it both?
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So the National African American Gun Association story, I pitched that myself. Awesome. And then other times, you know, we might see something that might be going on at city council or maybe locally or nationally, and we are given an assignment to try to localize that or flesh out some ideas or maybe go pursue something a little longer, see if there's more of a story there. So it just kind of depends. Yeah. But I say it's very 50-50.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think just the same way, you know, I think people think news reporters have a camera and a van and this huge production team. They kind of think it's going to be the same. Well, it used to be the same thing in the newspaper. You're going to read the same thing. You're going to read, you know, what's on the first page, second, 2, 3. But now, it's evolved, and I think it's important that it evolves, that we get all these new personalities and we get, like, what people are actually interested in just because that matters so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to do a pivot. Not hard pivot, but a pivot. Now, no. So the other reason, Melly, I want to bring you in that I'm like jealous of you because again, the podcast is called Jealous.
It is the theme.
It is the theme. And I probably should have prefaced this before you came on, but I'm jealous of you because at one point I remember seeing on your Instagram, like you and your boyfriend going down the streets of Chicago during a Puerto Rican festival. You out of the sunroof, waving a Puerto Rican flag. And I was like, Melody is living her best life right now. And I'm here for it. But B, like, it was kind of one of those things where I saw him like, my God, she is so, it looks like you are so secure and like, you're so secure in your Hispanic identity. And again, kind of going with that Hispanic Heritage Month, you're so secure in it that I was like, man, I wish I was that secure in my Hispanic identity. And these are questions I brought up to myself ever since having a kid, because now I have a kid who's going to grow up Hispanic, go through different spaces in life as a person of color. And I was like, man, how do I get to where Melody's at right now? And in that. So like for you, can you kind of talk a little bit about like your Hispanic heritage and like how, because every single time I've talked to you, I'm like, you are so proud to be a Latina woman. And like, I'm jealous of that. Like you're so proud of, again, of that Hispanic identity. So like, where does that pride come from?
So I would say that I very much grew into my identity as a Boricua, as a Puerto Rican woman, and I'm very proud to have that heritage and to know, you know, my whole family comes from that island. So I think it's something that I definitely grew into. I am from the town that I'm from is sort of just outside Rockford. It's smaller, and it is like a majority white community. And so in high school, I will say I never really felt that I belonged. There was at one point, like, I hated how dark I would get in the summer. I hated my hair. I would want to straighten my hair. Thank God my mom never let me. And I just, I don't know. It's not that I hated myself, but it was more like I didn't feel appreciated for who I was because I wasn't seeing myself represented in the community that I was in. And then I went to college. I would say maybe more specifically grad school. And I went to grad school in Chicago. And Chicago is very diverse. And I was able to explore my identity a little bit more within the neighborhoods that are there. And I wanted to learn more about where my parents grew up and sort of the history in Puerto Rico and its relations to the United States and sort of what that means for me. And the more I looked into that, the more I felt like I was seeing myself and that even though I wasn't born on the island, that I still carry that blood, like from my ancestors, from my parents and my family, and all of their struggles that kind of, correlate to where I am today. I have a great appreciation for that. And so where like before, when I was in high school, although I knew I was Puerto Rican, maybe I wouldn't identify it with it as much. And I feel like today I'm, I'll scream it from the rooftops. You saw me hanging out at my boyfriend's car with my huge flag, and yeah,
it was a great video.
It definitely was a journey. So, but yeah, it definitely didn't. It wasn't always like that though.
No, and I think I have a very similar upbringing in that too. Of like I went to high school at West Des Moines Valley, which. Like, I think a lot of millennials in this generation are growing up in a way of like, sometimes you don't fit in the spaces of the Latinos or Hispanic, but you also don't necessarily fit into those spaces that are predominantly occupied by white people or other people of color. Like we're in this weird, like you said, weird situation where we don't know where we fit. And so then we grow up, like, I grew up actually for the most part, like, not knowing Spanish. And I took 4 years of Spanish in high school and college, and I'm a Spanish major. And I'm still, like, if you drop me in a Spanish country, I could get by, but I'm not fluent, which is unfortunate. But, like, where do you think, like, millennials of our generation in Hispanic culture are, like, trying to find themselves in society today?
Like how?
Yeah.
I think, first of all, the younger generation is more accepting of their background and where they're coming from. I think we're seeing that more and more, and I love that. I think that it comes with who you surround yourself with, and you also from the willingness to learn, at least for myself and you as well, living in predominantly white neighborhoods, and we're very different from maybe friends that I know that were like born in Mexico or Puerto Rico or immigrated from there, and so they have a sense of identity that they brought with them, versus I feel like for us sometimes it's finding that identity, and I think it's just the willingness to be to be open and having those conversations, and reaching out to other people that you identify with within that community, to try to have those conversations, because some of them are painful, in trying to realize like maybe why you don't choose to identify with that, or maybe not as much, or maybe it's just curiosity about wanting to learn more about your culture. And so I think, at least for millennials and people like you and I think it's just the willingness to sit down and learn and have conversations, and being open to learning about, whether it's from our family, our older generations, or it's from maybe like your neighbor down the street that also might be Puerto Rican, or whatever it might be.
No, for sure. And so with that Latina Boricua pride, how do you take that into your reporting then? Because I definitely like, people always say like, oh, reporters, the media, like we're supposed to remain unbiased and everything like that. But I feel like any rational human being, whether it's in marketing or anything, we always take a bit of ourselves into whatever project we're doing. So how do you kind of channel some of that pride into what you're doing?
So I think that in terms of perspective, when we have conversations about how we cover certain communities, and how we look for stories, and thinking about different angles that maybe we haven't explored before, I think that's how I bring that into my career and my job and doing stories. I think an example would be last November, after the presidential election, I did a story with some DACA recipients about how, whether or not they thought Biden could deliver on immigration reform, because there was a lot of promises made, and I think a lot of things that I was seeing in the news is like, oh, they're positive, they're remaining positive, everything's going to be okay, but the people that I talk to don't feel that way. And so I was like, we should do a story about, the other side of it, because although people are putting on a brave face and saying it's going to be great, it's going to be great, we have to realize that multiple administrations have been making promises and they haven't been kept, and a lot of people are scared, worried, and don't know what their future holds for them. And I thought it was important that we try to localize that and give those people a voice to say their concerns, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies. So I thought like that's just an example of how that perspective of being part of a different community can help in the way that we do coverage.
Yeah, and like I'm sure like it. I don't know. It is like, how do you always feel like it's necessary to bring up those conversations in whatever space you're in? But like, are you ever annoyed? I'm like, God dang it! Like, why do I have to be the one to always bring this up again and again? Or like, you're just like, all right, when is somebody else going to bring this up, or do I have to bring it up?
I think that patience is always key. I work with an awesome staff, and a lot of the times, sometimes I'm not the one that's bringing up these things. It's other people, and so I think that speaks to the fact of just like a great environment that I work in. But I also think sometimes it can be a little tiring to have to say certain things, or for example, at 13, there was a newscast where someone had put illegal immigrant, and that's not actually AP style. It's you're not supposed to use illegal. And so I sent an email out to the whole newsroom and said, hey, not only is this offensive, but it's also not AP style, and so we need to make sure that we're not using it. And AP style says the reason why we don't use it is because we don't refer to people as being illegal. And so that can sometimes be a little tiring, because sometimes those are mistakes that can be repeated. And so sometimes like repeating yourself on something like that can be a little exhausting, but it is necessary. And you realize that if I'm not going to say anything, then maybe it'll stay like that, and it shouldn't stay like that. But yeah.
Well, we thank you for your work.
Absolutely.
Now another pivot. Back to, again, staying on jealousy. Who are you jealous of?
Yeah.
Another loaded question.
I'm jealous of people who don't have student debt.
Hey. Preach.
Bro, same. Same.
So any millionaires out there watching this, I got student debt.
Oh my
Help me out. Yeah, I think that's what I would say on that, because I think about all the things I could do if I wasn't paying so much money to my student loan every month.
On a reporter's salary.
So I think, yeah, it'd be nice. But what is it, like 25 years I got on that thing? So.
Oh my gosh! And then you might have your school calling too. Like, you've graduated? Would you like to
Oh,
donate
that's
back to the
that's always
school?
the
And you're
best
like,
time,
I
like-
cannot donate back to the school
Like-
because I'm still paying you.
Like
Exactly.
they always do that on like around homecoming time. Like I keep getting the leaflets from Laura's too a couple weeks ago around homecoming. And I was like, I'm not donating. And then we went to homecoming and they were like, hey, here are these alumni boxes for a $10 donation. And I'm like, damn it, you got me.
You got me. What was in it?
Sunglasses,
Okay.
a big old like Duhawk like insignia thing that I could like put somewhere. What else was in there? Some beads, a cup that changes colors when you put cold stuff in it.
Okay.
Fancy.
It's a plastic cup. It's not that
gonna
fancy.
be a new bathtub.
I meant to
cup for
I meant to
Miles.
bring it in, and it's just sitting on the counter. A straw that also changes color.
Oh my goodness. All adults need all these things you're mentioning.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
And then like a little streamer thing that like you open it up, it says "Go Duhawks" on it,
Cute.
and then the box is all branded and everything too,
Awesome.
which I have on my desk. But I was like, I shouldn't be donating, but fine. Like you guys got me.
You're proud. You're proud
Yeah.
of where you went to school. It's all
I
right.
am.
Speaking of college, were you a college athlete?
I was.
Let's talk about that, because college athletes impress
At the same
me.
place the next Bachelorette's is from.
Yes.
Oh.
So Michelle was a senior when I was a freshman, and
Oh
she was
my
on.
God.
Oh,
the
you were
basketball
that
team.
close?
Yeah.
I thought for some reason I thought you said that you guys like she was there just like a year after you got there.
No, she was. We went to Bradley at the same time.
Very
Yes.
cool. Somehow this is funny. I'm gonna let you continue, but this podcast always we talk about The Bachelor like
Well,
almost every other
how can
episode.
you not?
How can you not? Cool. Okay, so what sport did you play?
I was in cross country and track.
Very good. Oh my gosh. Talk about jealous.
You would love to talk to Mark then because he's a runner.
And we kind of talk about how I can't run, and it's a struggle for
Well,
me.
because
about every other
I
episode,
made
too.
the joke like we don't need to run. I mean, we got cars. Built. We got the wheel, combustion engines, domesticated animals. Like, what are we running for?
Fun.
To stay in shape, to keep our lungs healthy. Yeah, fun. To practice for the apocalypse. There's all kinds of reasons to run.
There you go.
The eventual apocalypse when we're back to hunter gatherers.
Right? Yeah.
Melody will smoke us all.
Wow.
We'll see.
You will.
I don't run that much anymore. But yeah, I went to Bradley, and yeah, it was a really great time.
How much did you love being a college athlete? Because
I
I
loved
was
it. I was
yeah.
pretty much obsessed.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I would have changed is I was so busy. I also had a job at the same time, and so I wish I would have given myself like more time to relax and like recover from workouts and stuff like that. But I was one of those people. I was like, oh, I gotta work.
Wow.
So
Is that just like a very inherent thing though? Because when did you have your first job?
16?
I was 14 when I got my first job.
Okay, what were you doing?
And I was working at Cold Stone Creamery
Yeah.
at 14.
Oh
Oh
man.
my goodness.
But like Iowa labor laws are super strict, so
Yeah.
you can't work past 7 o'clock if you're under 16.
yeah.
And so it'd be like 6:55, and the manager would look at me and be like, "You clock out,"
Oh,
because they were like
gosh.
totally afraid of like getting
Getting in
audited.
trouble.
Yeah, getting
Yeah, of
audited or something. I was
Yeah.
like, if I clock out at 7:01, it's fine.
Oh man, I worked at Come and Go for my first job. Yeah, we go all at Come and Go. This is Mackenzie. How may I help you? So if you guys want me back, I still know my line.
And you know the difference between unleaded 88
I sure do. I sure do. Choose that
E15.
ethanol. You're pumping Iowa's economy full. So just keep using it.
But like, do you think that's just a very inherent thing, especially maybe in Hispanic families, of like everybody's just working super early in life?
Well, I know that my parents worked really hard, and like they had a lot of jobs. I think it was just me really wanting a sense of independence because I don't know about you, Sam, but the parents out there in the Hispanic community be like, be home at 9. You hung out with your friends yesterday, can't hang out with them today. Do I know their mom? You cannot have a sleepover with her.
Or like you say, like, oh, Mom, can we go to McDonald's? There's food at the house.
There's food at the house. Yeah.
So then you work and be like, I bought my own McDonald's.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So work time was also my social time.
There you go.
Because I was a lifeguard, and a lot of the high school kids worked at the pool as well. So I'd be like, oh, I gotta work late. I was at a bonfire.
I hope your mom's not listening to this. She's gonna be heartbroken. She's like, what? You met your boyfriend where? You were at bonfires? Oh, man.
But yeah, I think that's kind of like where that stemmed from. And then wanting the independence of having like my own money and wanting to be able to like have a say with what I did with that. I think that drove a lot of the reason why I wanted my own job as well. I also had to pay rent in college, so my parents told me if I wanted to live off campus that I would have to get a job, and I really did. Rent was only $300.
When we talk about college rent, oh my
Dude,
gosh, we thought it was
everything
so
college
expensive.
prices, like everything besides the cost of going to college
Oh, in
is
the books, yeah, exactly.
Like, who remembers going? I remember going to bars and like $1 rum and cokes.
Yes.
Or
just
like $2 bottle nights, or like
Gosh.
triple double bubble.
They shouldn't do
Yeah.
that. They should make everything so expensive now because I'm a parent. I'm like, they need to raise the prices.
Well, 'cause you know it's gonna be your money.
Yeah, well, and I just don't want my kids out there drinking. You know, getting crazy. I hope they're college
Until mom
athletes.
gives them the first beer and just like,
Mom will not be giving them the first
so it'll be
beer.
dad.
No.
No, there's
Absolutely
no.
not.
I think of the like. Have you seen the movie Chef?
no.
Oh,
Yeah, so-
okay. That was sweet.
So there's a scene in Chef where it's Jon Favreau and he's there with his buddy and his son. His son's like what 9-10 years old, and they're working a
he's
food
so
truck. They
cute.
finish the day, and he's like, Dad, what are you guys drinking? He's like beer. No, his buddy's like, this isn't beer. This is cerveza. It's John Leguizamo, and
Love him.
and he's like, here, you want to try some? So he gives his like 10-year-old kid beer, tries it. He's like, ugh. He's like, yeah, it tastes terrible, doesn't it? Remember that when your friends
Yeah.
offer it to you. And I was like,
Okay.
I'm going to do that to
Yeah.
Miles.
If you put it that way, then maybe, yeah. Just give them the worst stuff you can find.
Yeah.
That's what it all tastes like. So you don't.
Yeah,
want
you don't
any more
want
this.
any of that.
No. Oh man, yeah. Follow Jealous Podcast for more parenting tips.
to be fair, you got 2 of them. I'm still learning.
Oh man, we're all still learning. I think people who have 20-year-olds are still learning.
Also
It's-
true.
It's a
Also true.
never-ending process.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll end this. We always like to end it on a high note. Melody, what are 2 pieces of advice you would give to somebody? They're just looking for advice, and they're like, Melody Mercado, lay it down.
Gosh. I think I would say I think a lot of something that discourages a lot of people, especially for young journalists out there, is they get a lot of no's. And I think it's really important to keep trying, because for the abundance of no's that you get, there are going to be a couple yeses, and it is worth it to keep grinding and to keep working and to find something, whatever, even if it's not journalism, whatever it may be. It's tough and competitive out there with internships in all fields and jobs after college, especially now. But just to stay positive and to keep trying and to not give up. I know that's very generic, but I think that that's really important to say. And I think it's always really important also for young people just getting out of college to never downplay your experiences, and don't be afraid to negotiate, because you know, you have valuable experiences, whatever it may be. It may be internship, it may be practical experience on campus, that you're doing something similar to what you would be doing in a job. And I see way too many times students not even put that on their resume because they're like, well, it was just like an on-campus thing. And I was like, no, like that was something that you were doing that you did a good job of, and you have practical experience, and you should include that. And also for negotiating, I see way too many young journalists, and specifically saying yes to the first offer that they get and not negotiating. Negotiate. Ask for what you want because it's worth it.
Yep.
And a lot of the times they're willing to say yes, but if you don't ask, you're never gonna know.
Right.
So.
Right. That's great advice. Both
Yeah,
of those
that
great
I mean
advice.
that goes even outside of journalism.
Oh yeah.
Like any
anything.
place.
Yes.
There's always, you know, there's always wiggle room. So
Mhm. There's always
use
wiggle
that
room.
to your advantage.
Ask for always ask for more. I always ask for more.
Right. That's so good for people.
That's
to
why you're a
hear.
great journalist.
Yeah, that's true. It's great for people to hear because, you know, it's uncomfortable, and anything you can do to get yourself out of that comfort zone and hearing it, the more times people hear it, they start to believe it. So great advice.
Thank you.
Awesome. This was so much fun. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to meet you and hear more
thank
about your
you.
story. And thank you, Sam, for bringing Melody on.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Yeah, this
So
is
much
a
fun.
early morning episode. You're a busy gal. You've got things to do the rest of the day. So this is good.
More election.
Yes. Election day is November 2nd.
Coming up. Oh my goodness. I know
It's
we were
always-
flipping through the calendar,
Dude,
the
it's
shoot calendar. I'm
always
like,
on-
election day.
Election day is always on my birthday.
right. Well, it's always on your birth week.
Yeah.
Is it the 2nd?
Yeah, my birthday is November 2nd.
Yeah.
Oh, well, celebrate at the polls.
This year. Wear your birthday hat.
I go
Tell Sam
I
happy
go vote,
birthday.
just immediately take a shot.
That's your right.
That might be, depending on where I go, though, that might be illegal.
I mean, I don't know. I do not provide legal counsel. Do not look at
Third piece of advice. Do not take
We'll talk about this later.
Oh my goodness. Awesome. Well, thank you again and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.